All right there, Spurs fans. It's me, the Hotspur hippie. It took me 3 goes to name the channel, but fuck it, I got there in the end. And apparently I can swear for a little bit before I start cashing in. Filthy lucre. But, you know, I've got to do videos to get the number of subscribers up before I can start streaming live and having a chat with you internet nutters out there instead of me just talking to a phone like a mad person on my own. Nice blue eyes though. So, bit of content for you, as the kids call it. Man, this just isn't my scene, man. I'm trying. You know, the other day, was it the other week, I said big up to someone for the first time, and it just felt, I'm left-handed, it felt like I was writing with my right hand. It just didn't feel natural, but it's what everyone says there, so big up, internet nutters. So I did this list a while ago. It's for Dermot's THFC Till I Die channel. But you know, when you talk with other people, you have to compromise on these things. So this is my personal Tottenham Hotspur all-time 11. And it's kind of heavily weighted to days gone by. There's a few players that I've seen, and also players that really I heard a lot about when I was younger, and videos I've seen online. So there's not too many. In fact, there's no one new on it at all, because it's all time. Football wasn't invented in 1992. It was Premier League glamour hoo-ha. So here we go. Content. Thanks for clicking like and subscribe. Fuck. All right. Now in goal, it was. There's only 2 candidates I think that would be in anyone's list, and that's Pat Jennings and of course Bobby Mims, Ray Clemence. Now I saw Ray Clemence a bit, and man, he had a safe pair of hands. He had such a presence in the penalty box. I only saw Pat Jennings once, which was it might even have been one of the first football games I saw live. It was at Wembley. It was England versus Northern Ireland, and I think Northern Ireland had to draw to qualify for the World Cup. And Pat Jennings, even though he was like 500 years old, was in goal for them. And that night, because my nationality is all over the place, I was supporting Northern Ireland. And Pat Jennings was amazing. I remember this one shot he saved off Glenn Hoddle. It was a screaming shot by Glenn Hoddle, and it just was. There was no chance it was getting past Pat Jennings. There really wasn't. He had a good old career with Tottenham. Unfortunately, we mucked him around a bit, so he went to Twats FC down the road. But we forgive him that, because we kind of drove him out a little bit, and he's Tottenham through and through. And I know he's back at the club. Now, when it comes... Oh, by the way, I'm going for a 4-4-2 here. When it comes to defenders, it was a wealth of people to pick from, unlike current days. So what I've gone for is I've gone for right back Steve Perryman. Guy I saw play many a time. 17 years career with Tottenham. Just... he didn't strike me as a captain that was all mouth. He was very leading by example. And he picked the right times to get physical. I wouldn't say he was an overly physical player. I think he was definitely fair, unless they struck the first blow. I remember an almighty challenge he did on, what was his name? Gow, not David Gower. Gow. Can't remember his name now. Gow, I think it was. He was giving our players a hard time in the first match against Man City in the replay, and Perryman let him know to cut that out, and it was good captaincy, really good captaincy. Captain all the way till he left in '86, when I think we had Richard Gough for a year and then Gary Mabbott. I've got as centre backs, I've got Mike England and Ledley King. Mike England isn't someone that I can speak too much about. I'll be doing a disservice if I even tried, but he's in my top 11. So this is one of those ones that's mainly through reputation. But Ledley King, he really struck me as a player, it really much in the mould of Bobby Moore, funnily enough. He used to be able to time a challenge perfectly without going aground or just nick a ball away from someone's feet. But more importantly, and Steve Perryman was the same, that when they got the ball, more often than not, play started up again for our benefit. It wasn't just a tackle out to touch. It was getting the ball and doing something useful with it. I mean, Ledley King was astonishing considering his injuries and everything. A one-club man, played for us for 13 years. I've got a lot of longevity in this list. So Jennings was with us 13 years. Steve Perryman 17 years. Mike England 9 years. At left back, I've got another player I'm going from on reputation to pay a bit of homage to players gone by, and that's Cyril Knowles. 12 years in the club, 64 to 76. And really, I've gone for him just because of the song Nice One, Cyril. I'm not saying there's any logical rhyme or reason, because football's about emotion. It's not about statistics. I don't know what rubbish do they talk about? Intensive K runs, goal creating actions. We used to call that setting up a goal. We didn't keep a tally of it and give someone a bloody ribbon at the end of the season. It was setting up a goal, or in other words, doing your fucking job as a player. Don't know how I got onto that. Then we get onto the midfield. Now, I've got some other honourable mentions in defence. Gary Mabbott, who led us through a lot of good times and lean times, but he was always rock solid, never put a foot wrong. Very clean player as well, but very hard to get past or intimidate. You just couldn't do it. And the other I've got, just because I like the cut of his jib, was Paul Miller. Maxi Miller. Now, midfield, I mean, how do you begin to even poke a stick at the amazing champagne footballers we've had in midfield over the years? This is where Tottenham was really strong. I saw many great players, and there's still some good players there now. So I couldn't go past Danny Blanchflower, 10 years service, double winning captain. You just can't have a Tottenham team without him in it. I mean, some of these players, I wish there was more footage available. I think it's football has become a bit of cult of the new since the invention of YouTube. Don't get me wrong, I do love it, because especially when Tottenham have had their arse handed to them, I can go on YouTube and look at matches that are enjoyable from days gone by, or even recent results, just to get a bit of that glory Tottenham feeling back. But some of these players, there just isn't enough out there, and it's a shame. Next to him, the midfield duo, you cannot knock this. Osvaldo Ardiles and Glenn Hoddle. It was a pair made in heaven. The understanding alarm's going on the phone. Edit. Very different players. Ozzy was short balls, tenacious, bit more of a dribbler. Glenn could it was like he was a pool player on a football pitch, what he could do with that ball, the way he could spin it, curl it. Never frightened of getting the ball, these two. It didn't matter what sort of pressure they were under. They always wanted the ball, because they had such skill. It was so hard to get it off them. You couldn't get the ball off these two. No way on earth. And Ozzy, I was so glad that I managed to see him play. He, unfortunately for Tottenham, he had to go on loan to Paris Saint-Germain because of the Falklands War, and I didn't really care about all that war stuff. I was 12, 13 something at the time. All I really cared about was Ozzy and Ricky not being able to play. Fears for safety, missing the '82 FA Cup final. It's it's one of those sad things when I find it when sport and politics mix. I just don't like it, because at the end of it, sports people are people. How do I explain this? the sports people aren't the ones carrying guns, are they? They're out there doing it on the pitch, and the fans, I think, are the same. Um, when football and sport, I am going to waffle on loads of sidetracks. Get used to it. It's just the way my mind works. I think I really saw that again during the World Cup, where um, I think it was the game Saudi Arabia versus Argentina. And let's face it, Saudi Arabia, they're not the most popular country in the world. Um, and But when it came down to football, it was like the whole world was cheering the Saudis on, and the Saudi fans, when you see them reacting to the way their team was playing, they're just like us. We're all the same, you know. That's what I love about football and I love about sport in general. It gets all these governments and people bossing you around. You know, it's nothing to do with them. It's a sport of the people, particularly football. It's a beautiful game, brings people together. Even if we hate them when they're on the other side sometimes, but it's a harmless hate, harmless hate. So that's Aussie and Glenn. 10 years at the club for Aussie. Had a fantastic testimonial with Maradona just taking the piss. I mean, he's so good. It's such a fun day that. I dread to think, we're on the verge of seeing testimonials, if they even have them anymore, for players like Eric Dyer. I mean, fuck me, I can't get my head around that one. Testimonial, spending 10 years at a club was, it was like an achievement all in itself, because that's 10 years of having to survive that end of season cull, showing that you still give the club that they can't get elsewhere. So to do it for that period of time was an amazing thing. It's changed now because players are a lot more mobile, and agents have always got to get their 15% of a bit of a transfer bung, haven't they? So no wonder players are on the move all the time. And my last midfielder, the lowest serving member here, with only three years service to Tottenham Hotspur, Paul Gascoigne. Paul Gascoigne was a breath of fresh air. He came into the club. I'd say as Spurs were kind of on the decline. After 87, we got rid of a few players. Well, Glenn left. Not long after, in 88, Waddle left. Aussie had gone. Earlier than that, Galvin Roberts, players like that had gone. And really, this is when we start seeing the new ownership model of Tottenham taking effect. When Irving Scholar took over in 83, that's when it's almost like the engines were cut a bit on Tottenham Hotspur. And we've been gliding and catching the odd thermal since then. So when people talk about leaving, and I'm not going to really dwell too much, I don't think, on ownership about the club, because I just don't want to keep saying the same thing. I like to talk about football, but I really don't like the owners, and I haven't liked them since 1983. Scholar was the prototype model for exploiting the name and goodwill of Tottenham Hotspur to fund other business activities, and he completely stuffed us up and nearly closed us down. And now we've got Enoch doing exactly the same thing. They seem to be making more money out of it, but the club isn't what it used to be, unfortunately. Good thing about football is things can change overnight, and one man can make a difference. So, Ange Postecoglou's blue and white army, here we go, man. So Paul Gascoigne came into a team, him and Lineker, when it was definitely on the wane, and it started really the phase of us always being maybe 2 or 3 good players short of going for something. Prior to 87, our teams had been good, and we came close to, had a couple of title challenges, proper title challenges, and cups, and really that was on the way out. But he still won an FA Cup for us in 91. He really got us to the final almost not single-handedly, but he was a major part of it. And I love the story that Gary Lineker talks about after the cup. They all took their medals and cut down to Gaza in the hospital, which is, I wonder if there's as much team spirit around in football at the moment. I don't see it as much, but that doesn't mean it can't be created. I think with a bit of alchemy, you can easily have it. And the great teams, the greatest teams, are the ones that have that chemistry between the players. They've been assembled like a jigsaw puzzle instead of stats on a spreadsheet. That doesn't tell you anything about the character of a player. But when you see a team that has chemistry with each other, it's a beautiful thing. It's like watching, to me, it's the same as watching a great rock band that all play off each other. Football's the same for me. Now, up front, I had to put in Jimmy Greaves again. I haven't played a player. I just haven't seen enough of. Really haven't. There's quite a few clips of him, but you just don't get. I don't think you get the full effect of a player like that. I do remember though, and this is just one instance I can remember clearly, but it's happened a few times in my life, and this was probably about a year ago in Australia. And I got chatting to this, funnily enough, an old Greek guy. And he used to go and see Tottenham play in the 1960s, which is great, unexpected. There's not many Spurs fans over here yet. Ange is coming. And I asked, what was the favourite player he liked to see? And he did not hesitate. No hesitation, no debate. It was Jimmy Greaves all day long. And when people talk about Harry Kane beating the Premier League record, I don't know, to me that's kind of a false record. We kind of restarted the record books in 1992, and it counts out players like Jimmy Greaves or Dixie Dean, who scored way more. Even Alan Shearer has got goals that don't count, even though he scored more than a few for Southampton the year before the Premier League came about. So I don't like all the stats just being Premier League. I know Premier League plays less games, but tough shit. I mean, surely they could work out, a mathematical thing to maybe dial the old records down a bit or something. I don't know, but just I kind of get a thrill out of that when I watch cricket and the Ashes are coming up, and I hope England stuff Australia. When it comes to different sports, I support different countries, and it comes down to the cut of the jib of the players, as well as what I grew up watching. And England cricket team is the one for me. But I like it when they show up the stats, and it might have best fourth run partnership, and it'd be from 1921. It just, I don't know, it adds to the richness and texture of a game to me, and the culture of a game, instead of just everything being in the last 10 years or the last 30 years. I suppose as time goes on and old farts like me start falling off the twig, then that'll become like that for younger people. So maybe that's just me being an old stick in the mud. Leave a comment below. I won't read it. So who would you put to partner Greaves? There's a few candidates. Harry Kane's got to be a mention, hasn't he? But the player I went for, and there's only one reason for this. There was one reason I originally put this. I might have a few more since then. But it's Alan Gilzean, because he was with us for 10 years. And I remember Jimmy Greaves being asked once who was his best striking partner. And straight away he said Alan Gilzean. So I figure if it's good enough for Jimmy Greaves, it's good enough for me. And he's quite a character, sort of vanished out of the limelight for years after leaving football, but came back for a few appearances on various things, and he just seemed like a really good guy. And I'm all for people with a bit of hair like this, bit of Ralph Coates happening, And as you get older, right? Here's the thing: people think people do comb overs because they think it fools you that, if I just do that, people think I have a fine head of hair. It's not that at all. Not that I do it myself, but the scant hair I have, I just like having a bit of hair. Okay, there's not a lot happening here, but I got it happening out the back, and I can tell you when you just put a few strands across the top of your head, when you got bugger all up there, it feels nice. So good on players like Ralph Coates and Bobby Charlton and Jackie Charlton. To me, it's them saying, stuff the world. I want to do what feels good for me. So it's not for you, it's for them. That's the secret of the comb over. That's the power of the comb over. Now on the subs bench, I've got Mickey Hazard, 2 spells at Tottenham, and he didn't get a lot of game time. Well, he got a bit of game time. He didn't get as much because the first team was so impenetrable. But I mean, he was a player that you brought on and you didn't play any worse, you know. And if a player was knackered that he was replacing, he'd lift up the tempo again. An astonishing player, and he struck me for the amount of years that he kind of served in a bit of a backup role, and a bit of sometimes a super sub, you know, covering for injuries. He just struck me as a guy that didn't have an ego, and that to me is something I think is good in football, because football it's a working class game, it's a humble game, and I've seen so many times where players or managers lose their humility, and football's a funny old beast. You start being a little bit braggadocious and it'll just come and bite you in the arse. It really will. Like if I think of the comparison between Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. I don't know much about Lionel Messi's personality, but maybe this backs up what I'm saying. He's achieved everything in the game. Cristiano came that short. And, you know, for me, he never played for Tottenham, so I really didn't like him that much. But, you know, you do an interview with Piers Morgan, you're down the toilet, mate, down the toilet. Have fun in Saudi Arabia. So Mickey Hazard, he's got. If ever you search YouTube and you find interviews with Mickey Hazard, he's a very funny guy. He's got some brilliant stories, which I won't even begin to try and tell you. Go and find them yourself. Do yourself a favour, have a bit of a treat. And the other substitute I've got is Graham Roberts, because Graham Roberts, I only shaded him out of being on the starting lineup by England and King. But he was a player that, even though he was a defender and he loved defending, he was a proper football player. He could take it up the pitch. He could take players on. He could be creative. But it was his steely resolve, his never give up attitude that I really liked. You know, he gets smashed in the face, lose some teeth, and just get straight back on the pitch. I've forgotten the player he chucked into an advert hoarding. Was it a Chelsea player? I think it was a Chelsea player. Kerry Dixon, or was it Arsenal, Charlie Nicholas? I don't know, but it was in the days where you could be somewhat more robust as a defender. But even though some of these defenders I've picked were absolute monsters, and I certainly would want to try and dribble a ball past them, when you look at their disciplinary records, they're actually not half bad. It was measured aggression. That's what it says to me. They knew their moments. They knew how far they could push it. Obviously, you can't push it as much in the modern day game, and you could get away because there was no cameras. And if the referee had his back turned, you could do a few tricks. But they weren't dirty players. They were just tough, hard players. Hard players. I've got some honourable mentions. Yeah, also at left back I had Chris Hughton there, mainly because he was a player I saw a lot and I thought he was fantastic. I mean, you talk about this stupid term, wing back. Look, there's some terms in football today I really just don't understand. I don't want to understand. I don't get. Wing back. So what? That's a fullback that runs up the pitch a bit more. Still a fullback, isn't it? Or are they a bit? I don't know. The other one I keep hearing, and I don't know what it is a pivot. I don't know what a pivot is. Is that someone that just gets the ball and kicks it? Well, that's a footballer. And if their act of doing that on the pitch, well then they're a fulcrum, because you pivot around a fulcrum. So why aren't they called fulcrums? I don't know. One of the many baffling words that I hear that's sexing up football these days, and it makes me laugh. I did a stream on Sean on Spurs Talk Show the other night. A lot of fun actually, where we're sort of talking through Angie's Celtic team and Tottenham, how we could have kind of fit into that. And half of it went above my head because they're all talking about this guy's a number 8 and a number 9. And like, it was easy. It was easy back in the day. You could tell what number someone was because it was on their back. So you could tell a number 6 was, you could tell Glenn Hoddle was number 10. It was easy. But now they've all got squad numbers and then you've got to have another number in your head. And I ain't got time for that. Can't be bothered. Who else we got here? Any more notes? No, I think that's about it. I've gone on long enough here. And look, the reason I haven't picked more modern players, because, you know, many players would pick, you know, maybe a David Ginola or a Teddy Sheringham. They would really get in there as well. Like I said, these are a mixture of players I heard about and I've seen. And also when I moved to Australia for the first maybe 10, 15 years, it was pretty hard to catch any live games over here. So I've got a great big black hole of my Spurs knowledge. You know, I could obviously look up results and find out how Tottenham did. But even seeing goals scored, you know, this is before YouTube and the internet, the world of nutters. So there is a great big hole in that. And so maybe if I'd have watched it, I would have had some of those players and I would have dropped some of these players off. But, you know, it's just a personal choice, really. All of these names, more than anything, I think they just scream out Tottenham Hotspur Football Club to me. These are the guys that made us, I was going to say made us what we are today, but we're not a lot at the moment. So, but these are players, like another thing on Sean's Spurs Talk Show, his intro has got a lot of photos of these kinds of people with some banging music. It gets me pumped up because it's usually like midnight if I ever go on his stream. You know, these are names that are full of glory for me, that were all outstanding and never left anything. You just never saw, you know, a 99% effort from any of these guys. And they all mean quite a lot to me, you know. And what I really want from Tottenham is, because even though I get misty-eyed when I talk about all these old players, sometimes I get a bit fed up with it, you know. I'd really love a team of today to see if it can spark my interest, like, you know, that little kid, which I still am in my head. You know, I might look like an old grizzled hobo, but I still have the steely mind of an 8-year-old. But wouldn't it be great to have, you know, heroes today, to get some glory today, and have something for the young generation of fans to shout and scream about and tell their grandkids about when they're older. A bit more glory instead of mediocrity, you know. I think people had that a little bit in the Poch years, Redknapp and Joel, but not at the highest of highs. And I'm hoping we can get back up there someday. We're a big enough club. We're a famous enough club, you know. That's the thing about Tottenham Hotspur. The name Tottenham Hotspur. Isn't it a weird old name? You know, I started supporting Tottenham. I can't remember how old I was. I really can't. But I had one of those footballs you'd buy from a petrol station, a garage, and it had loads of football team names on it. And I thought, I want to start supporting a club. Because my mum and dad, they weren't much into football. Dad supported Wealdstone FC, and, you know, I mean, good for Stuart Pearce, but not for me. So tossed up the ball, landed it, pointed my finger to a random name, and you know what that name was? It was West Ham United, and I thought, don't like the sound of that, so I threw it up again, and then it came down, Tottenham Hotspur. So I was old enough to read, so I was probably 4 or 5, and that was it, So I think I tell you what, drop a comment below with the stupid reason you started supporting Tottenham. I'm sure, you know, a lot of it get passed down, but there's going to be weirdos out there that just have a you know, oh, I like the colour blue, I like white, or you know, when you're an infant, there's got to be something crazy and silly to capture your imagination. And I would actually be interested to hear the silly reasons why people support Tottenham Hotspur. Anyway, that'll do for now. Come on, you Spurs!